أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على حبيبنا وشفيعنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. All praise and glory is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salutations and peace be upon His noble messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We have made our way through the blessed life of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and we are coming towards the end of the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and we have learned so many vital lessons in terms of how to coexist, engage, to communicate, to be a person of skill, to be a person of talent, to be a person who is tolerant, forgiving, merciful, loving, caring, and compassionate. All of these things we've learned from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam whilst he was in Makkah, and after his nubuwwah as well, and also whilst he was in Medina as well. So the social skills, the morals that we have learned, the religious lessons that we have learned, it's important for us not just to listen to all of these and think, wow, mashallah, it's very good. But in the month of Ramadan, and more importantly, outside the month of Ramadan, it is a time for application, it is a time for us to actually act upon all of the lessons that we have learned from the life of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So please do make sure that you don't have, this whole Josh in the month of Ramadan, but after the month of Ramadan as well, you carry on living the life of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We are also in the last few days of Ramadan, and I urge you again to make the most of the days and the nights that are remaining, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeking us, and it's important for us to be going out there and seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. For example, if a king were to announce that I'm going to come to Ashton on the line, and I'm going to come in the last 10 days of July, I'm not going to tell you which 10 days I'm going to come in, but any person who is seen outside greeting me, any person who is seen outside welcoming me, I will give him a great palace, I will give him £1 million, I will give him this reward and that reward, just for greeting me and meeting me and welcoming me. There would be nobody who would be sitting at home idly. Every single person, every single day would be eagerly anticipating the arrival of that king. Why? Because they can see a reward which is imminent. However, the King of all kings, the Lord of all of mankind, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has promised us that if you come seeking me, if you come seeking my forgiveness, my mercy and the rewards, then I shall give you things that you cannot even imagine. Those rewards that are there in Jannah for you, the gardens of paradise, and the blessings that you shall receive in this dunya as well. But we have to be actively seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these last 10 days of Ramadan. So tomorrow especially, on the 27th night as well as the 29th night which are remaining, please do sincerely seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His forgiveness and His mercy as well. So we come to another episode or another part of the life of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's life. And yesterday we discussed the 7th year of Hijrah, where the Prophet alayhi sallam returned to Makkah, and after returning to Makkah, by him appreciating the skills of those people who are non-Muslims and just simply acknowledging their skill, and those people slowly came to Islam, like the likes of Khalid ibn Walid and Amr bin As, and then how these people triumphed in their, once they came to Islam, and helped Muslims as well. And we also get quite a few other examples as well of how to live with each other and respect each other as citizens, even though you may be a minority, even though you may not necessarily have the same faith. These were some of the core lessons we learned yesterday in the 7th year of the Prophet ﷺ. We come on to the end of the 7th year into the 8th year of Hijrah, and this is when the Battle of Khaibar takes place. And this is an important episode to also consider and to reflect upon as well, because it will dispel many of the misunderstandings that Orientalists have towards Islam and also towards the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you remember from the lectures that we have done previously, the people of Medina, namely the Jews of Medina, they were the ones who broke the pact, they broke the agreement, they broke the constitution. And as a consequence of that, the Prophet ﷺ, he expelled them from Medina. They had the ability to leave as well as they have the ability to leave with their possessions and their properties. But when they left, they went to Khaibar, and this is where they set up camp. And all of the people who were defeated by the Prophet ﷺ, whether in the Battle of Badr or Uhud or Khandaq or any other battle that took place, all of those people, the villains you can almost say, the evil people, they would go and they would camp up here in the city of Khaibar. So this was growing into an area which was full of hostility, full of evil towards Islam and also towards the Prophet ﷺ. And for the last 3 to 4 years, all of the conspirators, all of the people who were trying to undermine Islam and the Muslims, they would be gathering here and trying to make up all these various plans to try to overthrow Islam and overthrow the Muslims as well. So in essence, this is the place for all of the traitors, this is the place for all of the evil gatherers, all those people who want to cause harm to Muslims and to Islam. So the Prophet ﷺ, remember, he was always aware of his surroundings. So even though he's there in Medina and he's quite comfortable because now Islam has become much more stronger, but nonetheless he's still aware of what's happening in and around the city of Medina as well. Whether that was in Makkah, whether that was in Taif, whether that was in Khaibar or anywhere else, nationally and internationally, he was constantly gathering information and intelligence to seek the best way to engage with people, to communicate with people. Just the way yesterday when we discussed that he sent 14 messengers to 14 different cities and towns and areas with the message of Islam. And each of the messengers that was sent by the Prophet, they had to learn the culture and the custom of that area and also the language as well, so that when they would go there, they would communicate effectively and engage with them as well. And their only mission was to speak with them in a peaceful way, in a peaceful manner. So this is important as well for us to reflect on. So the Prophet ﷺ, and he's seen that in the city of Khaibar, the Jews are there, they're conspiring, the traitors are there, they're conspiring, all of the people who have been defeated, they are there, they're conspiring. So this is a melting pot for all of the bad things, and as you will know, with any volcano, not the one which is dormant, but the one which is active, it's just a matter of time before it explodes, and then the effects of that volcano will be devastating for all those people which are nearby. So the Prophet ﷺ is constantly aware of the current situation and scenario, and he's adapting and he's learning how to react in a productive manner. So the Prophet ﷺ seeks more information about what's happening in Khaibar. And Sahaba Ikram, they find out that the people of Khaibar, the Jews of Khaibar, as well as the people of Khaibar, they're actually talking to the kings and the leaders of Rome as well as Persia, and they're trying to get them together to form an alliance so that they can kill the Muslims and destroy Islam. Because Islam was emerging as a new power, it was there as a new state, as a new entity, and already in Ghassasin area, where the Battle of Khaibar took place yesterday, which we discussed, these are the people who are trying to now destroy Muslims because they were threatened by the arrival of the new Muslims and them being challenged that, we claim ourselves to be God, but you're telling us to worship a God that we haven't seen, and He is the one and only and independent. So all of these things are happening, and most importantly, they're being discussed and they're being planned in the city of Khaibar. So the Prophet ﷺ is aware that Khaibar is becoming a very, very dangerous and volatile place, and it will eventually erupt and cause destruction towards the Muslims as well. So before the Prophet ﷺ did anything, he actually understood the scenario, the situation that he was in, and then he sat down with the Sahaba Ikram and consulted them, as he did with every single battle, as he did with every single affair that was to affect all of the Muslims. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he realized that Khaibar was 150 kilometers from Medina, so it's not like it's, we're here in Manchester and it's London out there, it's quite close to the city of Medina, or even closer than that. And the Prophet ﷺ also realized that this was a huge military and economic power as well, because because there were over 10,000 soldiers in the area of Khaibar, 10,000 soldiers who were able to fight, and these were armed soldiers as well. And within this area of Khaibar, there were over 40,000 palm trees as well. So this is a big city. It's a big area where there's lots and lots of people who are there, and especially this concoction of conspirators and traitors who are there, and they will eventually erupt and cause damage to the Muslims. So he's understanding the geographical situation of where they are, how close they are, and also the economic strength and also the military strength as well. And the Prophet ﷺ further established that what was the actual structure of the Khaibar area as well, because they had built fortresses. So they had many fortresses, and it was divided into two main regions. The first region had 5 fortresses, and the second region had 3 fortresses. So altogether they had 8 fortresses, like 8 castles. You can almost imagine one castle, and the second, and the third, and the fourth, and it was all built on a hill area. So they had the advantage because they could see the enemies from far, and they could obviously remain within the walls of Khaibar. And also the way that the structure of Khaibar was that they had dug tunnels from within the city as well as outside of the city, and they had supply of food and water for an entire year. So even if they were to be besieged for an entire year, none of the people would be affected, because they had the 40,000 palm trees, they had the agriculture, they had the land, they had the wells, they had the food, they had all these people. So if you think about it, it's a very difficult place for you to go and for you to conquer and for you to besiege and for you to overcome it, because they have everything available to them, and how long will you stay there and how long will you last. Unlike in the Battle of Trench, when they stay there for 24 days, they finally have to give up. But here, the Prophet ﷺ is analysing every single situation before he makes a decision on what they need to do, because there is an imminent threat, and there is a threat because they are colluding with other people and they are attempting to overthrow and kill the Muslims as well. However, at the same time, they're very powerful economically, militarily, and the defences that they have. So the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't want to kill them, because this was never the mission of Islam, and this was never the mission of the Prophet. You can see in Makkah, this was never his mandate, and also in Medina, every single situation that he was forced upon him, or he was defending Islam and the message of Islam, and never was it, the Prophet was going out to actually kill or conquer in that particular manner. The Prophet ﷺ really wanted them to stop their collusion, stop all of their evil things and the plans and the conspiracy that they were planning, and to live with them and coexist with them. This was the plan of the Prophet ﷺ. So, in order to achieve this, the Prophet ﷺ still had to prepare, because if they have 10,000 soldiers, even though they're going there to negotiate, anything could still happen. So the Prophet ﷺ, right away, when he returned back to Makkah the second year after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was made, although they had agreed that no people would come with any arms or any swords or anything like that, still had 100 soldiers on their horses outside of the city of Makkah, just in case something were to happen. But nothing happened, so then they started themselves and they went peacefully to Makkah. So similarly here, the Prophet ﷺ has consulted the Sahaba Ikram, and they know as well that their message is their message, and the mission is the mission of peace, to share the message, and it's up to people to accept or to reject. And they want to coexist, and they don't want to kill each other, to destroy each other, any of these things. So 1,500 Sahaba Ikram, they gather their arms, and they go with the Prophet ﷺ, and they are well aware of the situation that they're getting themselves in. That they know there's 10,000 soldiers there. They know they have the supply for an entire year, and even more than that. And they have fortresses which are absolutely huge, and they have so many defenses available to them. So they know all of these things, so they're not going out there to kill or to plunder or anything like that. They go there to negotiate with these people. So the Prophet ﷺ, he understands all of these things, and when they arrive on the outskirts of Khaibar, they besiege the fortress. What else can they do? They can just sit outside, and they want to communicate with these people. However, these people, they know they are fearful of the Muslims, and they are fearful of Islam, and they actually want to attack the Muslims, and they see, wait a minute, this is an opportunity for us to go and kill the Muslims. There's only 1,500 of them, and then there's 10,000 of us. However, the Prophet ﷺ also understood their mentality and the psyche of those people. Why? Because those people who are courageous, those people who are valiant, they don't need fortresses to defend themselves. They can go out and they can do whatever they need to do. And because they had built not just one fortress but 8 fortresses, it showed and illustrated to the Prophet that these people were always defensive and they were not on the offensive, and these people were not as courageous as the Sahaba Ikram were, because they had the faith as well as the determination. It doesn't matter if they had 300 people against 1,000 people in the Battle of Badr, or here if they have 1,500 against 10,000 people. The Sahaba Ikram, they had the faith as well as the planning and also the determination as well. So the Prophet in all aspects of life will analyze every single situation as well. So don't just go with, Allah can see plan, try to understand people and their mentality, the society that you are in, and how to interact and how to deal effectively with people in order for you to become successful. So all of these things are going through the mind of the Prophet, and that's when he makes the decision to go there and then to besiege the city, because he knows how, this is what they're truly like. So once they arrive around Maghrib time, towards Isha time, and the Prophet could have, if he wanted to, led an attack on the city of Khaibar at that time. But the Prophet did not order this, because why? Because women and children would be sleeping and resting at that time. And throughout the battles, and especially the ethics and the morals of all of the wars of Islam, dictated that you never disturb a woman, you never fight a woman, neither do you fight a child, or kill a child, or cut down any trees, or poison any wells, or kill any elderly people, or those people who are worshipping Allah in any way or form. So the fight is only with those people who are fighting you, and any other person who's not fighting you, you leave them completely alone. So the Prophet didn't want to disturb the women, didn't want to startle them or frighten them or hurt them in any way, neither the children. So they have this opportunity to attack in the middle of the night, which is the best time to attack, even though your enemies are unprepared and they can't see you coming in, and you can easily attack. But the Prophet is not there to attack, he's not there to kill, and this should reassure us that Islam was not there to kill, is not there to destroy, and the message is also for us to coexist and to share and not to destroy or kill in any way or form, even though Orientalists have claimed otherwise. So the Prophet is there for a peace, he's there for a treaty, just the way he made that treaty with the people of Quraysh at that time. So he's there finding that opportunity, and he tells all of the Sahaba that nobody will move from here, nobody will go and do anything and cause any undue stress on any other people in the city of Khaibar. We will stay here, and in the morning after Fajr, then we will decide to march forward, and then we will decide to do something. This is the Prophet ﷺ, not thirsty for blood, not thirsty for destruction. He always wants to talk, communicate, coexist, and come to an understanding that, look, we're not here to disturb you, you shouldn't be disturbing us and trying to get other people to come and destroy us, including with other people and conspiring with other people as well. So the intention of the Prophet ﷺ is either to get them to come to a treaty or a peace agreement, or for them to leave the Muslims alone in peace and then nobody can disturb each other. So this is the purpose of the Prophet ﷺ. And you can also ask yourselves that for the last 3 or 4 years, the Jews of Medina, they have been in Khaibar, and the people of Khaibar have been growing, and obviously all of their conspiracies have been growing as well. So why did the Prophet originally 3 years ago or 4 years ago, why didn't he do something about it then? Why now in the 80s that he do something about it? That's because the Prophet said, you always only pick one battle at a time. We like to get our hands and our fingers in different parts all the time, and then we end up losing everything. Do one thing at a time, do qualitative things, and also make sure you realize what your strengths are and your powers are, your power is and your weaknesses are, before you go and start doing too many things at one time, because you end up failing. So the Prophet ﷺ would assess all the situation and assess the threat and the levels of the threat at that time, and 3-4 years, the threat of Khaibar at that time was not high enough in order for them to go and do something like this. However, now, as the threat increased, and the Muslims got away from the Battle of Khaibar, the Khandaq and Uhud and Mu'tah and Badr, now is the time for them to go head on and try to stop this thing from actually going any further. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ chose to come in the 8th Hijrah and not before that, because he could have done that as well. So similarly, you need to pick your battles at the right time, pick your battles at the right time and at the right place, when you know you have the strengths with you and you're not weak. So the Prophet ﷺ is there with 1,500 Sahaba Ikram, and also there are women with the Prophet ﷺ as well. And women always, you don't just neglect women and think you have your places in your home, your places to cook and clean, and that's it, no. Women have an active role, and we've seen the Sira time in Makkah all the way to Medina, women have always played an integral role in supporting Islam, in nurturing Islam, and also in protecting Islam as well. And here as well, they wanted to come, not the Prophet ordered them or instructed them, they wanted to come willingly, and the Prophet allowed them to come because he knew he's not going there to kill, he's not going there to bring, he's not going there to destroy, but he's going there to negotiate an agreement with them as well. And in this actual battle that does take place in the Battle of Khaibar, believe it or not, there's over 10,000 soldiers. There's only 1,500 Sahaba Ikram, and amongst them 20 women as well. How many people do you think would have been killed? You know, there's 8 fortresses. There's 8 fortresses, and there's so many soldiers, so many people with horses and cavalry, all of these things. But in this battle, the Battle of Khaibar, only 90 soldiers are killed. And that's only because the Muslims had to defend themselves. Otherwise, had the Prophet been thirsty for blood, and the Muslims were barbaric as we are portrayed throughout the world, then we would have killed every single person, child and woman, and every single soldier. But we didn't. Why? Because this is not our intent and our purpose. Our purpose is to coexist, to live with each other with mutual understanding, and live with each other with peace. That's the main message. So only 19 soldiers were killed from those 10,000 soldiers who were there, who could have killed one of the Muslims, and Muslims could have done the same thing as well. You know exactly what's happened in the Crusades when Islam went there. Look at how we treated them, and look at how they treated us when they overcame the Muslims in Palestine as well. So remember who you are, and don't allow your anger to overcome you, or the need for vengeance to overcome you, and for it to cloud your judgment, and you end up doing something which is against the Sharia, against the mandate of what the Prophet ﷺ came with. So the Muslims, they are there, and they are outside the city of Khaibar, and they are besieging the city, and this besiege takes 15 days. So the Muslims are there besieging the Khaibar for 15 days, and they know that they're outnumbered, they're outsourced as well, because they have so much control and power, and also food available to them as well. However, the Prophet ﷺ reminds them to remain steadfast, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant them success. Why? Because they have prepared to the best of their ability, and they have come for the right reasons, and not for any other reason to gain more wealth, or gain more land, or more control, or anything like that. So as soon as the Prophet ﷺ actually reached Khaibar, the first thing that he did was he did a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh Allah, I've entered into this new city, I've entered into this new area, make it blessed for us, and make khair for us in this particular area as well. How many times have we come into Ashton the line and say, Allah Ta'ala khair from our in Ashton? We don't, we just think, oh, this is not our country, this is not our town. But this is, it can become your town, and it is your country. If you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to place khair and barakah for you in this area, wherever you may be. And this is the first thing the Prophet did. Entered into Khaibar at that time, did a dua, Allah Ta'ala place khair in this area. Why? Because Muslims are not here for any other purpose, but to spread khair, to share khair, to share that mercy with all of these people. So that's the first thing, that he wants to spread peace amongst all of the people as well. And they do not attack at night, and they wait and allow for the morning to come, and then the Muslims think that this is what we need to do. But the instructions were very, very clear from the Prophet that no woman is to be harmed, no child is to be harmed, no plant, no trees to be cut down, no well is to be poisoned, and no person who is worshipping is to be disturbed. You only defend yourself when those people who are attacking you, otherwise that's it. Because the Prophet wanted to communicate with them and negotiate with them as well. So whilst they are there outside the first fortress, remember there's 8 fortresses, and each is stronger and higher and bigger and in every way. So they are there outside of the first fort, and whilst the Prophet has sat all of the Sahaba in front of the first fort, if you remember in the Battle of Badr, jog your memories, in the Battle of Badr, remember when the Prophet was there, and they were in the valley, and there behind the 3 wells, and the Sahabi, he comes to the Prophet and asks him, is this a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or is this your own judgment? And the Prophet said, this is my own judgment that we should be in this particular position. And then he makes a suggestion that we should be in front of the wells. 2 wells we will fill with sand and with mitti so that nobody can get to the water. However, it's not a permanent change, because you can easily remove that again and the water will come back. And the 3rd well, we will use that for ourselves, and we can quench our thirst, and those people who are on the other side will not be able to actually attack us, and they won't be as strong as we are. So this is a suggestion that he made, and his name was Hubayb ibn Muniz. And he made a suggestion again. He approached the Prophet ﷺ and said, look, is this a revelation from Allah that you are sat here, or is your own understanding of where we should be? The Prophet said, no, this is my understanding of this is where we should be. And he said, look, now that we can't see them, because obviously the fortress is so high, but they can see us. And because they are a higher advantage, they can, point their arrows towards us and they can kill us very, very easily. So I suggest that we move back where they can't see us, but we can still see them from afar. So this was a suggestion that he made, and the Prophet ﷺ, as you know, he was always open for suggestions. Just because you are a leader at your workplace, a leader in an institution or a mosque, wherever you may be as a leader, religious or social or worldly leader, you should always be open to suggestions. Doesn't mean just because always be open for suggestion, and this is what the Prophet ﷺ, he accepts that suggestion. But then he mentions slightly an amendment. He says, well, we will stay here because if we move now, they may think that we are afraid and we have been frightened and then we are running away. So we will stay here for a little bit, a small period of time, and then we will go back to a more safer place as well. So look at how the Prophet is always flexible, adapting and open to suggestions and taking on mashri and the nasiha from other Sahaba Ikram as well. So whether you're a parent, whether you're an alim, whoever you may be, whatever your position, your role is, always be open to suggestions, because the way that you see things and perceive things are not necessarily the only way which is the right way as well. So the Prophet ﷺ, he accepts the suggestion and then they move back. So then 15 days they besieged the first fortress, and the Sahaba Ikram, as you know, they've only gone with a small amount of resources to provide for themselves, and obviously all of the other people who are there as well. So they start feeling the pangs of hunger as well, because their resources are diminishing and dwindling down. However, the Prophet ﷺ, being the creative person that he is, he starts getting the Sahaba to start singing a song so that their minds are elsewhere. So they start thinking about food, because the more you think about food, the more hungry you are as well. So they start singing songs and they start doing other things to keep their minds occupied as well. And this again reminds us of the Prophet ﷺ's appreciation for art and for culture, and how if it is used in the correct way, in a positive way, in a productive way, is absolutely fine. So just because somebody is singing, you can only sing the Quran, you can only sing the nasheed. No, you can sing other things as well, as long as they are positive, they encourage you, they raise your spirit, and they remind you of your purpose and what you're trying to achieve. So always try to appreciate good culture and appreciate good art as well, and not necessarily reject it because the Prophet never did it. We can't do it because this is haram, this is that. We have to be flexible and appreciate what is done at what particular time. And if it's something which is detrimental or wrong, then obviously you should leave it. If it's something which is good and encourages you, raises your spirit, and brings you closer as a community, then you should do that as well, the way the Prophet ﷺ is doing. So they are there for 15 days sieging the city of Khaibar, and Abu Bakr has tried to overcome the fortress, but he is unsuccessful. Then Sayyidina Umar tries as well with the Sahaba Ikram, and he's still unsuccessful as well. So the Muslims, their spirits is slightly dwindling as well, their resources are dwindling, and also their spirits are dwindling. But we can't even get through the first fort. How are we going to get through the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, and the seventh, and the eighth? And then there's 10,000 people there waiting for us with spears and, not guns, but obviously swords and everything as well. But the Prophet ﷺ still is encouraging them and raising their spirits, and then he mentions that tomorrow I will give the flag to that person whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, and that person will be given success from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he will overcome this fort. So all of the Sahaba Ikram, they're eagerly anticipating that maybe it's going to be me tomorrow, that Allah loves me. So it raises their spirit that, whoever gets the flag tomorrow, he's loved by Allah ta'ala, and he will be given heaven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he will become the one who is successful. So they all go to sleep with this anticipation and eagerness, and they have this rejuvenation of energy as well, that yes, we can do this, and tomorrow is the day of great success as well. And then the next day, on the 15th day, the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala chooses Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, and gives the flag to Sayyidina Ali, and Sayyidina Ali, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the power of Allah Almighty, he overcomes the first fort, and Muslims, go into the first fort. And then, whilst they are in the first fort, although the Muslims would have attacked all of the soldiers who are there, and attacked all the people who are there as well, they allow them to go into the second fort. Why? Because their intent is not to kill. Their intent is not to murder. Their intent is not to cause cause any destruction. They have overcome the first fort, and they just want to communicate, and they just want to tell them, stop what you're doing, and let's sort this out. So they don't kill any of them, and they just allow those people to go to the next fort, and then they overcome the next fort, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth. Alhamdulillah, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by their determination, their first determination, and their faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they carry on, overcoming the fort again and again and again, until they finally reach the seventh and the eighth fort, and there they come across something which is completely new. They come across catapults, and before this time, Muslims had never seen catapults. What is a catapult? At that time, they were just used to normal warfare by hand, by sword, by horse. That's the normal warfare that they're used to. But because the people of Khaibar were used to talking to the people of Persia and the people of Rome, they were taking all this new technology. Just the way other countries, they take this new technology as well, and they defend themselves. So they had also prepared something new and innovative, and the Muslims were thinking, oh, wait a minute, what do we do here? However, the Prophet ﷺ, he remained flexible, and then he told the Sahaba, this is how we can avoid the catapult, and we can avoid this situation, that situation as well. But they didn't use any of those people as human shields, or say, look, if you kill us, we're going to kill your people as well. They didn't negotiate in that particular way or cause any type of undue distress onto any of those people who were there. So the Prophet ﷺ, with the Sahaba, they're going there, they're carrying on, and they're overcoming all of these things as well, and they remain firm, and they don't become scared or afraid, and they carry on persisting and trying to overcome. And only, as I mentioned previously, only 90 people are killed from the 10,000 soldiers. From all of these people, only 90 are killed by self-defense as well. And finally, when they get to the last fort, this is when they finally surrender, and they say, fine, we surrender to you. The Prophet said, well, you could have surrendered at the beginning, because I haven't come to obviously kill you or anything like that. I look at my actions for the last 15 days, and even now, I haven't killed any of your people. I've only defended my nation. So the Prophet ﷺ reverts back to his original plan, which is to come to a peace treaty in agreement to them as well. So there's two suggestions the Prophet ﷺ makes to them, or two conditions rather he makes. The first one is that of disarmament, that you disarm yourself, you remove obviously all of the swords and the spears and whatever you have, you disarm yourself so that we no longer see you as a threat. So once you're disarmed, that's the first condition. And the second condition that the Prophet ﷺ was is that you must leave the city, because you're so close to Medina, and what you're doing for the last 3-4 years, you have caused harm to us as well, and now you must leave the city of Khaibar. However, the Prophet ﷺ didn't actually want this to happen. The reason why I say that is because this was just the Prophet ﷺ's entry point where he wanted to start negotiations with them. So by him saying leave, he knew that the Jews would come back with a counter argument and say, no, we will do this in return, or we'll do that in return. So this was just to instigate negotiations with them. So then once the Prophet ﷺ said, after this argument you have to leave, that's when the negotiations began. And he said, wait a minute, we don't want to leave, we're part of this area, this is our community, XYZ, and we won't cause any more fitna or fasad anymore, but allow us to stay here, and we will just cultivate the land and take care of the land. And the Prophet ﷺ said, fine, you can stay here, cultivate the land, sow what you need to sow, and live here peacefully, but half of whatever you cultivate, you will have to give to the city of Medina. So the Prophet ﷺ, after disarming them, then he gets them busy in just cultivating, because they know they have to give half of the produce every year to the people of Medina. So he never wanted them to leave in the first place, because that was not the purpose. The purpose was to coexist, to communicate, and to live with each other in peace. And now that they have been disarmed, that will be achieved. And second, because they are made busy to cultivate and doing all of these things, and they have to provide for the city of Medina, now they know that they're not going to get into any mischief as well. So this was the hikmah of the Prophet ﷺ. He could have killed them, he could have slaughtered them, he could have taken revenge for them breaking the constitution and said, wait a minute, you did treason beforehand, and therefore this is your punishment. But none of these things the Prophet ﷺ did, so he kept them busy from fighting and from conspiring and all of these things by saying, go and do this, come to the whole thing, that's it, and stop disturbing us as well. So it was not, the Prophet ﷺ turned a violent situation into a very, very peaceful situation where they can coexist and communicate as well, and he chose peace over vengeance as well. And this is an important lesson for us to learn as well, that many times in your life you will have the option to choose vengeance, to choose violence, but you should always incline towards that which is peaceful, and try to live with each other, because the world is one. You're not going to find a different world to go and live on. You're not going to find different neighbors to live with, anything like that. You're here and they're here. You can either kill each other and do see one so or one so, and that's not the solution. You're here to coexist, you're here to live with each other, and this is the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He has created you as tribes and as nations, to acknowledge each other, to get to know each other, and to coexist with each other. And this was the message of Allah, this is the message of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala. So I urge you again and again, that go out there, talk to people, communicate with people, interact with them, appreciate who they are, and if you do have any differences with those people, sit down at the negotiation table and not, to cause their destruction or not cause your own destruction, and learn from the blessed seed of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I know that everybody's had a very, very long day today. It's been a very, very challenging day. Today is actually a day which you can truly say that is a day of Ramadan, because the name Ramadan comes from Ramad, and Ramad in Arabic language basically means something which burns your sins away. So Ramadan is not only burning our fat away from fasting, if we are fasting properly, but it also burns our sins away as well. So today, alhamdulillah, is a true day of Ramadan, and I know it's been very, very challenging for everybody, so I'll keep my lecture very, very short, and I'll just suffice here that remember, any situation that you are in, you always have an option to choose between peace and choose between violence. We always go towards peace, because this is the way of Islam, and this is the way of the Messenger sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. So live in peace, coexist with peace, and always spread peace, because this is the first command of the Prophet when he entered into Medina, Afshu salam, spread peace amongst all of you, amongst the Jews, amongst the Christians, whoever is there living amongst you, spread peace amongst you as well. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to live with each other with peace, especially between our family members and friends, and all of those people who are not Muslims as well, inshallah, as we continue with the following few years remaining in the life of the Prophet sallallahu